Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scot MacTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks podcast.
My boss, former Vice President Al Gore, often says that, you know, this revolution, the clean energy revolution, has the grandness of the Industrial Revolution. It's big, but the speed of the Internet revolution. And that resonates with me because I can see how quickly things are changing just in my lifetime, how different things were when I started my career than they are right now, and how different they're going to be by the time I'm ending my career.
That's a great line. Hey, everybody, it is Scott. This is Wednesday. This is the David L. Lawrence Convention Center instead of the Epicast Studios. And it is the Climate Reality Leadership Corps. We, once again, are on the road, just like last week, talking to Stacie Paxton Cobos, who is actually the Vice President of Communications for a group that teaches activists to become pitch men and women for climate change, for climate activism, for reducing pollution. And I really wanted to know what makes these folks tick. What is it that they're teaching? I just saw Al Gore from 30 feet away. Buzzy was there. My daughter came with us. It was cool. They literally just walked us in a side door. Haley, who sort of coordinated our visit here, said, "Hey, would you like to go see the vice president?" And we could totally see him without going to the screen. And it was kind of an interesting moment. So we'll post photos of that. It was just kind of a fun thing. But this fine program has a website. I'm sure you're aware. It's at pitchwerks.com, Pitchwerks. That's right. We spell it incorrectly, and you're just going to have to be okay with that. With that website comes a ton of options, including the Pitchcraft blog, where you can find out, the continuing stories of folks who have already been on the show and what they're up to. We do a family newsletter every month. And we started last week. We made the patented MacTaggart whiplash session available through the website. What the hell is a whiplash session, Scott? Well, I'm so glad you asked. It is 2 hours with me where we are just going. We're just riffing. We're just trying to connect dots and basically take that 8-paragraph stumbly kind of a pitch that you've been using and boil it down to something that people will actually respond to. This is a test market. I don't know if it's going to stay there. We've been doing these transactions outside of the website up until this point, and it just made more sense to kind of squish everything together. It's a little bit easier. So the consulting stuff is, at least the first step on the consulting road, is now available through the website. So cool stuff there. I hope you enjoy this week's show. I spent a lot of time trying to set this up to make sure that you got something really valuable this week. Let's talk to Stacie. Stacie Cobos, how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having me.
We've never done a show from the convention center before. We've never done anything that even seemed like it might be policy driven. So thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We're here for the Climate Reality Leadership Corps. Yeah. Really enjoying the convention center here.
Do you like it? I mean, it's kind of like a point of pride for the city.
It's a beautiful, beautiful convention center. I mean, we've really enjoyed it. Got to have a reception outside last night. It was actually kind of warm. Really are enjoying ourselves today, and it's just really a great facility. The city should be proud. I love the views from the windows that you get while you're at the convention center. But I don't want to waste any time talking about views out of the convention center with you. We've got you. You're in the middle of this just storm of activity. So the Climate Reality Leadership Corps is doing what? We are training people here today to be climate leaders and activists talking about the climate crisis, but more importantly, the solutions that we have to address the crisis.
Is it fair and in bounds to say that part of the problem is that the people who reject the science on climate need to be addressed a certain way? Just a simple statement has not accomplished the goal.
It's true, but the numbers of climate deniers are actually quite small these days. It's about 70% of people, approximately, believe that the climate crisis is real and that it's man-made. I really think the disparity comes when people start talking about what we do or what we don't do about it.
Are they also maybe objecting to how it got here in the first place?
Well, there's, you know what, I won't claim to speak for them. There is a segment of the population that just doesn't believe the science.
Right.
But again, that is not the majority of people. So really what we're trying to do at the Climate Reality Project is to share the information, but in a more accessible way and in a positive way that not only talks about what is going on, because it can be quite scary, but the fact that there are solutions at hand, that solar and wind and a lot of other things are changing the dynamics and they're becoming cost competitive. So there's a lot of things to talk about that not everybody knows about, but we need to get the message across. And so what we're trying to do here with this training in Pittsburgh is to train more people, help them understand the facts, arm them with the information, but also how to communicate about it.
And that's what we're all about. And it's one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because this is one of those issues where we're not talking about how many people are going to profit from it, right? We're not talking about like, this is what the stock will do if the salespeople don't have the current marketing jargon in their
this is about our planet, about our health, about the environment that we live in now and for the future and our children's future.
And I think there's a certain aspect of the climate conversation that has become inextricable from identity. You may not agree with me. I see it at ground level as people protecting their tribe. And I wonder if you'll agree with this part. As soon as they feel their tribe is being attacked, it's something before human civilization triggers in their brain that says, no, the tribe's being attacked and you have to protect them because that's your safety, that's your future. They stuck up for you when you were down.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's tough to communicate when people are not always looking at the facts at hand. But I think as a communications professional, we know that the facts aren't actually what convinces people all the time.
It's not the control knob either, right?
Exactly. So, what we are really trying to do is provide the information to people, but also help people understand how to talk about it from a values base. And it is an identity base as well. And it can be tough to sometimes get through to people who may feel a certain way. But it's very important for people to speak from their values and talk about why they care about this and why they think it's important, and also be respectful of people when they may have different opinions and really starting a conversation about it. Yale did a study that showed that only about 19% of people are hearing about the climate crisis in a month. And that's just not enough people to actually have a serious dialogue, right, about such an important issue.
If it wasn't Yale, I would honestly reject the number. If it wasn't Yale, I would feel as though that's too low.
It seems too low, right? I mean, I'm talking about it a lot, but I think I used to work in politics and I put that hat on. People have their daily lives. They're getting their kids to school. They're worrying about how they're paying the bills. There's not always time to talk about the climate crisis.
Well, but with that said, though, and I don't want to be an alarmist. Again, that is interpreted maybe as attack, and it's not where I'm trying to come from. But it seems as though if there is even a grain of truth to it, let's not talk about climate. Let's talk about terrorism. If there were a grain of truth to a terrorist threat, you would watch everyone twist themselves up in knots trying to prevent it from being carried out.
Absolutely.
And this is my personal disconnect. And maybe it's because I have too much faith in our institutions. Maybe other people just don't have that. I'm not sure what it is, but when we are told that there is a credible threat from an external, foreign agent or whatever, we move and we use the exact same language. We talk about it's your children. It's what about the lives? It's what about the risk? What are you doing to protect us? I don't know. I think even with the bills, there's room to talk about this in a month.
I agree, because you flip it on its head and it's something like the climate crisis is affecting us in so many ways. And, I'm really interested in seeing how the recent hurricanes, the fire in California that so many people are talking about and is just so tragic, seeing right now how that may or may not increase the dialogue about the climate crisis, because while the climate crisis wasn't the only reason for those things, the change in our atmosphere is making these things different than they used to be. And we're seeing more and more of those things that people have to question and say, is this, what's going on? Is this affecting me not just in the future, but maybe affecting me now? We're also seeing a lot of the health risks. I was pregnant about a year and a half ago when the Zika scare was out, and I was terrified. And things like Zika, there's a lot of reasons why it was here, but the climate and the heat and various things are one of the things that they talk about being part of that. So
I guarantee you, if we would have had this conversation in my house, my wife and I would have wondered whether or not Alaska was accepting.
Yeah.
Can we move past? Yeah. We want to go past Canada. We want to go all
it's something
to the
that was such
tundra.
A scary thing, and the conversation's kind of waned, which is good. It doesn't seem as big of a scare, but at the time it was very scary. And so I use that only to talk about the fact that I think that the climate crisis is coming to a point where we're seeing it again a little bit more vividly in our actual daily lives now. We're seeing things on the news. We're seeing different health risks, and people need to scratch their heads and say, really what's going on? And it seems like maybe there's a connection here.
How did you end up with climate reality? You said that you were in politics. Tell us a little bit about, though, how this was the right choice for you.
Sure. Well, I worked in political communications. I worked for members of the Senate and the House. Was the National Press Secretary at the Democratic National Committee. And I went to a PR firm after politics, needed a life outside of work,
right,
so to speak. And, I really enjoyed my time there, and I worked for a lot of great clients. But as I found, my favorite clients were my nonprofit clients doing something that I felt passionately about. And when the opportunity came to work at Climate Reality, I just couldn't pass that up. It's something I feel very strongly about. I have 2 little boys. I care about their future.
How old are they?
3 and 1 in a few months.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm busy. So, solving the climate crisis and taking care of 2 little boys. So we're very busy in my
Fit
household.
in right on our show.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that. Everybody's got 15 irons in the fire any given time.
But it having kids makes you think in a different way, I think. And it really, was an opportunity to do something that I feel passionately about. But also really what drove me to the Climate Reality Project was the way that we try to communicate with people. We are trying to not make this a partisan issue. We don't see this as a partisan issue.
All the luck in the world to you.
I know. Well, that's the problem, right? So it has become a hot potato in so many ways where there really isn't a reason for it. Around the world, this is not a political issue. It's a
scientific one.
It's not even. It's all of the other nations besides the U.S. and Syria are in the Paris Agreement.
Right.
But yet the United States and Syria has a lot going on right now, right? But everybody else in the world agrees that the climate crisis is real and that we need to do something about it.
The fact that we're even having a conversation about whether or not it's real, honestly, kind of makes me sad. I mean, I don't like to take the show in a political direction, but I don't think this is political.
I agree. It's not. It shouldn't be political, and it's really about trying to meet people where they are, help them understand, talk about it person to person. So it's a really interesting issue because we do need to provide information to people, help them communicate it to other people they care about. And again, what drove me to the work that we do at the Climate Reality Project is that the climate crisis can be very hard to explain to people. We have wonderful scientists that sometimes don't communicate in a way that the average person kind of takes it in. And we try to make that information available, provide the facts and the figures, but also in a way that the average person that isn't, reading through scientific, publications
I love you,
could
but I'm going to
understand.
disagree with you here. I would say that there is a problem in motivation, right? In the fact that someone who has a vested interest has already gotten to that person.
Yeah.
And I think we're back to tribalism. I think we're back to you need to identify that person on the receiving end as you're in our tribe too.
Yeah,
I think we got to do a better job of that.
You may be right, but I guess I'm just not ready to give up yet.
I'm not giving up.
Yeah,
what
okay.
I'm saying is the fact that we need to acknowledge that it's identity stuff, and we need those people to feel as though they are in our tribe, right? Because I do think that whether it's people who profit from certain activities who don't want those activities to change, or it be somebody is a fan of a certain radio show or whatever, and they've built their tribe and they know what their tribe looks like, and you don't look like you're in it.
No.
We've got to recapture those people and bring them back to a larger circle, because right now we are the them in their us and them equation. I truly believe that.
I know you're the interviewer, but I'll throw that back at you. So can you, what do you think would make us more successful communicating about climate with people that maybe see themselves in those identities?
So if I were going to critique, I would say the first thing is the scientific community, the people who tend to be more climate sensitive fail to steal the repetition tool from the opposition's toolbox. Okay? The people who don't want climate legislation, the people who don't want us in the Paris Accord, want to repeat the same 5 points over and again, right? And we just, thanks to the kindness of your staff, we were able to go in and see Vice President Al Gore up on stage telling what was, without doubt, like a very moving personal story and those kinds of things. I don't believe that the weaponized fans of that radio show follow the same thing. I think they get 3 to 5 talking points, unencumbered by fact, and they go, remember these are 3 to 5 things, and that annoying uncle of yours at Thanksgiving will shut up. And that's what they're told, is this is how to win the tribe war between our tribe and their tribe. But the repetition tool seems to be working on those people, and I think we should steal it. Well,
we do know that repetition is key, and I say this often, if you're tired of hearing yourself say something, say it again.
Yes.
So
that is excellent advice.
Yes. So we need to keep talking about it. And I agree that, when somebody has the same key points and they repeat it again and again, I mean, that's really how you get your message across. So I hear what you're saying. And I think what we're here today is to try to give people the information, not just to spew out facts, but to really understand how to communicate about this in a way that can reach other people. And they're also learning tools about communication and the power of repetition, because it does take some time for people to hear the same thing over and over again to really have it sink in. So that's some of the work that we're trying to do is really encourage people to not just dig in on facts and figures, but to continually repeat their message that they believe and also speak to their heart, from their heart, and also to their audience. I mean, good communications always starts with knowing your audience, right?
I love the speak from the heart idea as bringing people back into remembering that it's all one tribe.
Exactly.
It really is one tribe.
Well, exactly.
It's bizarre to me, the idea that there are people who honestly think like, oh, well, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Right. Again, we're back to like the one tiny little whisper of chatter of credible terror threat becomes a parade of resources.
When it comes to the climate crisis, I feel like if people say, oh, well, if I'm wrong, well, so what's there's so many things going on right now with technology and advancements in the green economy that we can really be excited about. So there are some challenges and we need to address those, right? In terms of how this impacts people in certain industries. And that needs to be a serious point of discussion. And we need to make sure those people have training and that we're taking care of them. The thing is, though, is certain jobs are going away, and we're seeing this in a lot of industries. And it's important to be able to address that and the fears that people have because of that, while also providing the hope that there are other ways and training and things that they can be doing.
The person whose paycheck depends on coal is not likely to be receptive to the message today. However, I think that person is already under threat from robots and other industrial automation as it is.
No, exactly. The automation, it's not the climate crisis that's hurting the coal industry. It's hurt by automation. It's hurt by natural gas development. So it's really important, when we're talking about these issues that we take the feelings of these people into account and the people that understand those feelings and really work to help transition to a clean economy and clean jobs and help provide training. But it really is not going to help the people that some of these other people are trying to help by denying the climate crisis.
And you're literally going in exactly the direction I was going. If I'm that person and I hang up my hard hat on the hook as I come through the front door, right? I think, oh, I gotta beat these environmentalists, and then I gotta beat the robots when I'm done with that, right?
Yeah.
That feels taxing, and I haven't even really started on. I'm just thinking about it, right? If on the other hand it were a better, and this certainly isn't your issue. This is just, this is us as people having conversations at coffee, right?
Yep.
The robots are coming.
Yeah.
There's no company that's going to be like, oh, I didn't realize this was going to hurt your feelings, so we're not going to make that robot anymore. It's not part of the future here.
Well, and we see it in a lot of industries. I mean, I think a lot of talk in particular about driverless cars, what happens to a whole industry. So automation is going to change again the dynamic of our economy, and it's difficult because my boss, former Vice President Al Gore, often says that this revolution, the clean energy revolution, has the grandness of the Industrial Revolution. It's big, but the speed of the Internet revolution. And that resonates with me because I can see how quickly things are changing just in my lifetime, how different things were when I started my career than they are right now, and how different they're going to be by the time I'm ending my career.
That's a great line.
And what is in between, right? So we need to keep evolving. And we need to help when these industries are changing. But I think it's the first time because of technology now, we didn't have the change happen so fast. It maybe happened over someone's career, didn't start and you didn't have one career and then, 10 years later, your job was obsolete. And I think this is going to happen in a lot of industries.
Do you ever feel like part of the issue, and I think this is actually reflected in the current president, right? A longing for things the way they used to be.
The way we communicate is so different now. The way that the world works is very different. Some things remain very similar, but there's so many differences, and it's sometimes hard to keep up. And especially if you didn't grow up with technology, that's even more overwhelming. You're
going to have robots designing robots next.
Yeah.
Right? This is actually part of that automation conversation. And I don't mean to keep taking it out of your backyard. Again, it's interesting to draw parallels from other discussions. So back to the repetition and sort of talking points versus organic and real conversations, though. Have you noticed that the 97% number has been unusually sticky in terms of like 97% of scientists believe that they are in consensus with one another?
Yeah. Well, it is becoming sticky, I think, finally. Mm-hmm. But I think what I like about it is that, it's really easy for someone to understand that if 97% of climate scientists believe that climate change is real and it's man-made, but there's something we can do about it, then that's a pretty good number, right? So if you put it in context, I like to say sometimes if you went to a doctor and they told you needed a surgery, if it was a major surgery, you're probably going to get a second opinion. The second opinion says you need another surgery. You do that 97 times, most people are going to have the surgery.
I think Al Franken said this.
Did he?
I think he probably wrote it, but Al Franken said it, so take credit.
Okay, I'll take credit for Senator Franken's comments.
He doesn't listen to me. Trust me. You're totally safe. But
there's a lot of different ways. Sometimes we talk about it as a bridge. If 97% of people said the bridge wasn't safe, would you drive over it? Mm-hmm. Probably not. So, I think there's something about that helps people understand. And for so long, when you talk about the talking points of the other side on this, is that there's just been these repetitive points that people have kind of thrown out there just because one scientist decides that they want to say something, and oftentimes that has been backed by fossil fuel interests. So
yes.
But that's a message that not everybody hears, and I would also add that too often in the media, and this happens in politics too, is that there's a discussion about, well, I have one side, I need to insert the other, and there's no value placed on one opinion versus another opinion.
The false opposition,
comparison.
Right? Yeah. That's interesting though, because when they do it, it doesn't seem to be any baseline understanding of what is inbounds and outbounds for the conversation. Like the rules aren't even established before those two people show up in the little boxes on cable news.
Well, even if it's not just cable news, imagine a print story and they even have a little bit more room to explain something, say, but it becomes a he said, she said, where instead I think there's the ability of a reporter to look at the facts and report in a way that actually doesn't say this is what one person said and another person said, but these are really the facts. And that doesn't mean they can't have a counter perspective in there. But I do think journalism owes it to the public to actually provide some perspective. And that's, with the new fake news and everything that's going around these days, that discussion, we really don't have a lot of, there's a lot of questions and trust over journalists and the American media. And then you also have this, again, to talk about the new dynamics, you have anybody can be a reporter now. Anybody can publish.
You're looking at me.
We worry about bots that are making stories appear to be viral in a way they're not. So it's such an interesting dynamic. How do people navigate this new world? How does somebody that doesn't live this and breathe this day in and day out navigate it? It's tough.
I want to toss one other idea at you. And you asked me earlier, and I wasn't necessarily ready to give you an answer. But in the background, I've had a little process running. In marketing, I've been telling people to think of content as ammunition. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm sorry that it's all the war stuff, but like that imagery just seems to work, right? So content as ammunition seems to be actually my hot take from the 2016 election, right, is the fact that whoever those interests are that are placing ads on Facebook and different platforms and are doing these things, what they're trying to accomplish is not the truth. What they are trying to accomplish is to win a fight at ground level. So when they bought those ads and when they made those fake sites and they created those fake infographics and everything that goes into it, the memes, the lovely memes, they were not trying to be the speechwriter and the speech deliverer. They were trying to load up the ammunition depot with as many bullets as possible. And then they said, when Uncle Larry tells you this at Thanksgiving, say this instead, right? Content as ammunition, I think, is the new norm.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, the way that people are getting their information these days, and you aren't reliant on the traditional forms of media any longer. You can get your information in a lot of different ways, and those type of things do work because they're usually simple and clear and delivered in a way that an average person can relay the same message. And I think that's a struggle that we have with talking about the climate issue, is figuring out a way to be simple, concise. A lot of times people who work on climate change are not inclined. They want to provide all the facts. They really want people to understand the issue. I think we need to boil it down a little bit more simply. The
way that content is best turned into ammunition is by figuring out how would somebody Google search to force the answer, right? So if someone wants to win a fight.
Or it shows up on their Facebook feed and
But I think when they're losing the fight, they turn to their keyboard real fast and they type in arguments against, right? Or there's some sort of like weird, nerdy combination of quotation marks and Google that all works together to find the passage that they're looking for. And I know, again, I'm the one who advocated for respect the fact that it's evolutionary, right? That there's a don't threaten my tribe or else I have to fight you kind of thought process. But if we know that there are certain ways in which we can find people when they're looking, I don't know. I'd be curious to see what those are.
Yeah, and that's exactly, you need to find them where they're at because they're not going to find you otherwise. So that's really important. And some of the work we do at the Climate Reality Project is geared to just that. So we have an ebook, for example, that's, the 12 things that you get when you're a climate activist, the questions you may get, the kind of the crazy, silly ones, and how to answer it, right? And so that's a technique for us as well to when you're Googling the information. We want people to find that and have the resources available. By the way,
I want to do the dark side though. Yeah, I want to be the result that they get when they try to get the other answer. Like I want to be the result for when they Google
and then they
opposite.
Find your answer.
Yes, that's what I want. Like I totally want to cheat right now and just be like, oh, you're Googling how can I win with the wrong information? Great, here's the right information. Yeah. Like no, I wanted the wrong information. Yes. Yep. Here's your best search. Make sure you click I'm feeling lucky.
Yeah,
Stacie, I want to respect your time. I know you're on a short availability here. Thank you for coming in. Get back out there. Do the good fight.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. And if I can just take a moment to plug the Climate Reality Project.
Go nuts.
We're at climaterealityproject.com if people are looking for more information or want to get involved.
I would be glad to continue to push that through the week if people do want to get involved.
Okay,
I think
great.
It's very important.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to have me.
Stacie Paxton, Cobos, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, that's the end of the ride. That's the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in. We got to hold up our end of the bargain. We told you it was going to be a half-an-hour program. We got to make sure it stays about a half an hour. I realize it's never exact, but that's part of our charm around here is that artisanal quality, that it wasn't cut off surgically so much as it was broken off, in a sort of rough-hewn way. But don't worry, there's more next week. Find us back, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you find us. On Wednesday, there'll be another guest, another great guest, and we'll work on it in the meantime. If you need us, you get lonely, find us on social media. There's a LinkedIn company page, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual suspects. Tune in there, say hi, let us know what you're working on. Hey, who knows? We might even be able to help you out. Otherwise, I don't have anything else. Have a great week. I'll catch you then.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and MacTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com. pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.